Your face is already big. In the top right corner of the picture of your face, you should see a gray circle. A gray circle. Okay.
If your face is already big. Oh, God, that's funny. How about, man, I want to be able to do it on my phone. I don't know. I'll try it on my phone, and then worst case scenario is we can crop it on yours. But I just don't think I'm gonna have enough memory. Is all.
Yeah. Oh, did you just switch to landscape view?
Yeah.
Okay, because that changed what's happening with mine, but it's still not very big. Fucker, go do something.
It's okay, bud. It's okay. All right, let's just do it.
All right, sounds good. I got it as big as it can get, so you might just have to crop it, or we'll figure it out.
We should be aight.
Okay.
Cool. All right, Jonah, take it away.
Take it away. All right. Well, seeing as how we don't have a ton of fans right now.
That's okay.
So I don't really know if there's much of a point in just jumping straight into our music here.
No, dude. Let's just discuss things that Seth and Wyatt talk about.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad because I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time. Freemasons. Seth, are you familiar with the Freemasons?
I'm not insanely familiar with the Freemasons. So when I was in community college, I did American History 100, 101, and 102. And I think I did 104 after 102. But in my first history class, we studied cults. And so we studied the Quakers, and we studied Joseph Smith, and we studied the Freemasons, and how it was basically just like a drinking club for married guys on the East Coast. And there was quite a bit of, we went pretty in depth, and Mr. Herbert was my professor's name. He did a really good job of going in depth on the different details of these things. You know, he had a pretty slanted perspective on most things, but I still enjoyed his classes because he was I think he was a pretty genuine guy, and even though his views were pretty slanted, I still enjoyed his enthusiasm for what he was teaching and how he felt about what he was teaching.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you talk about it in the context of cults, because it's one of those organizations that's really hard to know what to make of it unless you join it. But you hear all this stuff about it that would make you skeptical to join, and so it's kind of a thing where you'll never really know, unless you jump into it.
Yeah.
But there's Freemason lodges, the Masonic lodges, in every city pretty much. I don't know. One thing I would do when I was working on American Queen and we stopped in just all these cities in the South, I would always see if I could find a Masonic lodge, and you can find them. You can find them in every city that exists. And but anyway, I have a friend who went down this rabbit hole about Freemasons, and they have a bunch of symbolism, and there's rituals. There's 33 different degrees of Freemason. It starts out after you do the first ritual, you're a first degree Mason, and there's 33 of them. So you have to do a ritual to get up each level.
Yeah, I knew a dude when we were younger. Sorry to interject so abruptly.
No,
I knew
you're
a
good.
dude when I was younger, and he would always talk about how his grandpa was a Freemason.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you this right now. The only person I ever knew who told me that their grandfather was a Freemason grew up to be the biggest silly goose. Love the guy to death. Total silly goose. Please continue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting just because for the first ritual, so the first ritual is like pretty public, like you can find information on what goes on in the first ritual, and you have to like you put a blindfold on, you have to remove any like necklaces or any like jewelry. You can't wear glasses or rings. Like you'd have to take off your wedding ring. You'd have to take off any necklace you wear, and you have to wear this outfit that they give you, and you're blindfolded and there's a noose around your neck. Like you're not like hanging or whatever. Like you're not gonna get hanged, but there's a noose around your neck, and they like guide you with it, and then they take you into this room, and then in the room, I can't remember what the room's called, but it's like the ritual room where they perform these rituals, and they'll have like either a sword or like a spear, some kind of like medieval type weapon that's like special to the lodge.
Yeah.
And they put it to your chest, and you have to like say some kind of oath. And so just from that first ritual, it gets pretty weird, right? You're putting on blindfolds and putting a noose around your neck. And there's all these conspiracy theories, which may or may not be true. Who knows? I mean, I'm not going to find out because I'm not joining. That there's conspiracy theories that it's like a satanic organization.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen the police footage of like when they raided Jeffrey Epstein's like house or whatever on his island, but there's a lot of Freemason symbols on his property in that video of the police raid.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, one symbol is like in the Freemason lodges in the ritual room, it's always a black and white checkerboard floor, and in Jeffrey Epstein's house, it's black and white checkerboard floor, and there's plenty of other Freemason symbolism, but I just thought it was interesting.
That is interesting. Symbolisms are a fascinating thing. Like, what's the phrase that you use to hide symbolism? Viable deniability.
Oh yeah, plausible deniability.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah.
I think that that's very fascinating. That's very fascinating. I think the government does a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I also think that there probably is a lot of times that we read plausible deniability into something when it is legitimately a coincidence.
Right. Yeah, where we're like, oh, that's just coincidence, but there's actually something going on there.
Yeah, dude. I'm not gonna get too far into it, but I would totally be willing to talk about the Bored Ape Yacht Club sometime.
Yeah. We should do that at some point.
We could probably do a whole pod on Bored Ape.
Yeah, exactly. I need to do a little bit more research before we talk about that.
Yeah. So, like, there's 33 degrees. They call them Masonic ranks, it says here. Masonic ranks. Fellow craft, master mason, entered apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they
top
called
rank is called
Freemasons?
Yeah, the top rank, the 33rd degree, is called like a worshipful master. So if you're the highest degree you can be, you're a worshipful master. And I don't know, that just is weird to me that you can have that title.
Okay. Ben Franklin was a Freemason, according to the Googles.
Yes. Albert Pike as well, the guy who founded the Ku Klux Klan, was a Freemason.
Okay.
Charles Darwin.
George
Ford. Washington. Yeah, lots of presidents, or at least a few presidents.
Theodore Roosevelt. Oh, here's a fun one. Buzz Aldrin. That's probably the most fun one. Houdini.
There's definitely musicians. Do you like Mac DeMarco, Seth? Do you know who he is?
The singer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has this song called Chamber of Reflection. And the video starts out with like the Freemason compass just dead center of the video.
Yeah.
And if you look up, I think it's called Chamber of Reflection or Room of Reflection or something like that. I can't remember what the song's called, but if you look up what the song's called, it's actually a room that they use in the Masonic lodges where they like shut you in there by yourself to give you time to reflect on things for like a certain number of hours. So, I mean, there's even, popular musicians and stuff that are part of it. So
That's interesting. When you're working with reverb on like production, like digital audio workstations, like chambers is a type of space in a space designer reverb, and then like reflective surfaces, and then there's like reflective chambers. Specifically, or at least in the version of Logic that I have, there's like reflective chambers. It would be interesting if he just named his Logic file after the reverb that he was using when he was producing that song. And then whoever made the video was like, "Ooh, I know about reflective chambers."
That could be. That could very well be. I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar with the guy. I just know that one song from him. And I don't know if he's ever talked about it in interviews or anything, but certainly whoever made the music video for him knew what they were doing.
Totally. That could be a good series, like different types of Freemasons.
Yeah,
the pod
definitely.
series.
Yeah, and there's the interesting thing. Sorry, we don't need to keep talking about this for a really long time. But
clearly, somebody here is very interested in Freemasons.
But so there's Freemasons. You can only be a man, and to join the Freemasons, you can't join if you're a woman. But they have
from my understanding, the like Freemasons started as a drinking fraternity for blue collar dudes in, I think, New York City. Like
it started. I've done quite a bit of research on this. It started with as the stonemasons, like the trade being a stonemason.
Yeah, blue collar dudes.
Yeah, and yeah, you're probably right.
Like abolition.
But I think it predates America though. And there's like they would come up with secret handshakes to show like what level of the craft they were, since they didn't have like licenses and stuff back then. It's like if you knew when you would get to such a level of like being a stonemason, like you're this good at it, you learn a new handshake, and then that's how you would signify that I'm a journeyman or whatever.
It's your resume.
Yep. And so that's why there is like a Freemason handshake. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but Freemasons, they like shake each other's hand a weird way. It looks like a normal handshake, but there's some distinct differences that I can't quite remember. But anyway, what I was saying about there's a separate organization for women called like the Sisterhood of the Eastern Star. This is gonna get interesting here. Quit laughing. This is very serious.
This is when you're a rank 33.
What was that?
When you're a 33rd rank Mason, this is you do a normal handshake, and then you both go like this.
Yeah, exactly. That's what most people think about crazy shit when they think of secret handshake, but it's not that crazy. It has to be subtle, so they have plausible deniability.
They like really gently tickle each other's palm with their pinkies. It feels kind of good.
Yes, but anyways, they have a female organization that's it's called like the Sisterhood of the Eastern Star or something like that. And anyway, my grandma was in that, and I always heard rumors that like, oh, there's like an oath of secrecy. Like the first oath you take is an oath of secrecy, so you can't talk about anything that you hear in the Freemasons or anything you guys work on. You can't talk about it. And I was like, that seems no way. But I called my grandma because my dad told me that she was part of the this Eastern Star group, and I was like, Grandma, is it satanic? And she's like, no, it's not satanic. She's not in it. She claims she's not in it anymore. But I was like, okay, what'd you guys do? And she's like, "Oh, I can't talk about it." And I was like, "Why can't you talk about it?" And she was like, I swore an oath. Like there was an oath we took to not talk about it. And I was like, "Grandma, you tell me right now what you guys talked about." And she wouldn't tell me. She was
Or
like,
so help me, Grandma.
yeah, she wouldn't tell me. So she didn't do much to quell my fears that it was a satanic organization. Um,
That's hysterical, dude. I wonder
yeah,
how she got involved with that.
she told me that it was just like a social club, and she wanted to just like have friends and stuff. And then the reason she quit was because there wasn't very many young people. It was just a bunch of old people, and she didn't want to hang out with a bunch of old people all the time.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
But who knows?
Right on.
I think she's keeping something from me.
Yeah. Sick, dude. That's terribly fascinating.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get her on the podcast.
Grandma exposed.
Freemason grandma drops a bomb, reveals that she was conspiring with Donald Trump for his election in the early 90s.
Yes.
Cool, dude.
Yeah. So that's that. That's Freemasons. If anyone watches this, you guys should do a deep dive and go schizophrenic for us and do some research.
Oh, good. 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 It's interesting, like, how everybody kind of has their own funny little crazy thing that they've been involved with.
Yeah.
I was just checking the time on my camera.
Oh, you're good.
Not necessarily involved with, but like, people have interesting stories. I think like that's one of the reasons that, or the reason probably, like the two reasons that like Joe Rogan's podcast has done so well is because Joe Rogan is fantastic at just being interested in people.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that Joe Rogan's genuine interest in like the uniqueness of different people's lives, it like fosters people to share a lot. And then you get like that dude that hitchhiked all the way across the United States or whatnot. You know who I'm talking about?
I've heard of the guy.
Not Mike Posner. He hiked it. But Mike Posner's
Forrest
sick.
Gump.
He's from Detroit.
Oh, nice.
Let's see here. David Cho.
Okay. I've heard of that guy.
David
I
Cho.
remember hearing about a guy hitchhiking across the country.
He's a musician, actor, and he was a journalist and a podcast host. He's from LA.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, interesting guy. He's got some crazy stuff, dude. He talks about the things that people tell him when, like, the things that people tell you when you're a hitchhiker. Like, guy picks you up in the middle of the night and he starts telling you stories like, murder and incest and necrophilia and just like all sorts of unbelievable things. But people will tell you because we have an innate desire to confess our like stuff. And he talks about how vulnerable people will be because they're like, I'm never going to see this guy. He doesn't know my name. He doesn't know anything about me. And even if he tells everybody that he ever talks to about what I said, it doesn't matter because it's like going to confession.
Yeah.
It's like talking to a priest in a box. Like there's no face. It's completely anonymous. So yeah, just interesting, man. It's interesting what people will share and the stories that people have. Like it's like when you're talking to your grandpa. Like when I'm talking to my grandfather, who's just like a farmer from Arkansas,
Uh-huh.
The things that he remembers and the things that he's been through. I'm like, dude, you're more interesting than anybody I've ever read about on the internet. But it's just because you're a guy that I know.
Yeah.
But Arkansas is pretty cool. Yeah.
I've never been to Arkansas.
I mean, Arkansas itself it's just very pretty. Like it's pretty rural. Like pretty much the whole thing is very rural, other than like Bentonville and Jonesboro, and uh, what's like Little Rock, Greenbrier area. But yeah, my grandfather flew crop dusting planes for farms and fertilized people's
Oh,
farms
nice.
with a little airplane, and flying an airplane all around Arkansas will get you some pretty cool stories.
Yeah, I bet. That's awesome.
What else we got written down for subject matter today?
What else we got written down? Well, we have a couple things. We have Star Wars. We've got Marvel.
Yeah.
We've got Harry Potter.
Yeah.
We've got cults. We've got cryptocurrencies.
Ooh, dude. Bitcoin's
talk
never
about Solana?
gonna retrace ever again.
No?
No, dude. Only green candles.
Only green candles. That's right.
You balked? Yeah, dude. So Marvel, Harry Potter, and Star Wars.
Yeah.
The thing that I was telling you about, and I'll just like go into this. It's interesting because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. Read the Harry Potter books twice growing up, and and then like I've read them 2.5 times in my adult life. I've watched the movies. I've watched every Harry Potter movie more times than I think I can count. And Marvel was coming out pretty much like Harry Potter ended, and then like I think Iron Man came out in like what 2006.
I think it was 2010. I was in like I can't remember what grade. I think I was in 4th grade or maybe 2nd grade. But maybe 2008.
Okay, so Deathly Hallows Part 1 came out in 2010.
Uh-huh.
And then Part 2 came out in 2011.
Mhm.
Okay. So 2011 was the end of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Iron Man 1 release date is May 2008. So
yeah,
like
2000.
I grew up reading Harry Potter, and then the Harry Potter movies were coming out as I was like getting into my teen years, right? So 2011 I would have been 15. And so there's like 3 years before like the Harry Potter franchise hits its absolute crescendo. There's this little guy in the background that's like the MCU, and obviously Iron Man was a big deal, but like when Iron Man came out, we couldn't see Endgame. Like we could feel it in a way, in an abstract sense, but we couldn't see Endgame. And like so as Harry Potter is like coming to an end, the MCU starts happening, and like as I'm coming of age, you know, like obviously the Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies had already come out, and then the Andrew Garfield ones weren't far behind, and Spider-Man's like a huge coming of age story.
Yeah.
But as I was coming of age, like I was kind of closing the door on my relationship with Harry Potter for that kind of season of my life, because I just like when like my brother was the age of like Harry, Ron, and Hermione as the books were coming out. Like they were Harry. I think Harry is born in 1990, and my brother was born in 1990. So like they were the same age, but then like when I was in 5th grade or whatnot, like when I was 10, like the characters were like the same age as me, basically. They were like a little bit older. So anyway, I like J.K. Rowling is like the mother of my imaginary best friends.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like
I
it's
know
like
what you
this
mean.
it's this interesting like thing. So Harry Potter did this like amazing thing where J.K. Rowling like she she portrayed like the innocence and the legitimacy simultaneously of children so wonderfully in a way that had never like been accomplished in the mainstream, you know? Like there there are other stories of like young heroes. Like obviously Narnia is a huge deal.
Hmm.
And you know, Lewis was pretty celebrated and
Yeah.
is to this day. But like Lord of the Rings isn't about a bunch of little kids. It's about small people, but not little kids.
Right.
And then like uh you know, Marvel comics like Spider-Man starts when Peter's in high school.
Yeah.
But like when Harry Potter was coming out, like we had Harry, Ron, Hermione, Neville, and Draco, like these five characters, and J.K. Rowling like simultaneously told five of the best coming of age stories all at the same
Right.
time. Like each of them have these incredible coming of age stories that are so deep and so like they connect with the human spirit. Like J.K. Rowling really, I think J.K. Rowling really understands the human condition, and like she really understands the depth of how like as human beings we like we can be east and west simultaneously.
Hmm.
Um, and so like she did an amazing job of that. And then like Marvel did an amazing job of like creating this massive universe with really really deep characters. But all of our characters, like our youngest character in the MCU is Peter Parker. Like
Hmm.
like the first 20 films, Peter Parker is he's as young as it gets, and he's like already he's nearly a young adult. Like Tom Holland doesn't even look like a 15, 16-year-old in those movies. Like
Yeah.
Tom Holland straight up looks like 24 in those movies. We just pretend that he doesn't.
Hmm.
Not that the movies aren't convincing. And I'm not bagging on Tom Holland. I love Tom Holland. He's a like I love his
Yeah.
portrayal of Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield's the best. I digress. Um, so the MCU did this amazing job of making this big, comprehensive story that tells it tells the hero's journey in a whole lot of different ways, and then you know you obviously have this really big, like pure, Christic, like character at the center of it that's Captain America, and he's the leader of the Avengers, and he's the first Avenger, and he's what holds the Avengers together. And so the MCU gave us a bigger picture, like than Harry Potter did. It gave us more characters and like so much depth with so many of them. Um, and then so like that's such a huge W for them in that sense, but they took an L in the sense that we didn't really get to connect with like the child archetype or like children, whereas Harry Potter did a better job of that than probably any fiction ever. And
Yeah.
um, then you have Star Wars, and like Luke is like he's like a really sheltered 17-year-old, 18-year-old, whatever. He's like a really sheltered kid. So he's like the maturity level kind of like a 12 or 13-year-old. Like when you meet Luke Skywalker. And I think Star Wars, like overall, I would argue that Star Wars is the best of those big three at telling a story, creating a universe, and connecting with like as many facets in of the human being in terms of like identity as
Hmm.
possible. Like the biggest spectrum and going the deepest. Like you get Luke as a little kid, you get Anakin as a little kid. Like episode 1, the way that we see Anakin tells us so much about Darth Vader. It's like you know, you've seen the pictures like fear, anger, hate, suffering, and it's like little kid Anakin in episode 2 and 3, and then it's Darth Vader. Um, dude, like Darth Vader in the first 6 Star Wars movies imagine Harry Potter, except as well as like getting Harry's full story, you also get Voldemort's entire backstory,
Right.
like start to finish. And then like once you get to the sequel trilogy, you have a generational depth of character, and like Luke, and Luke is a huge deal, and Luke's father, Anakin, is a huge deal, and Leia, and Kylo, and Kylo's father, and like these characters very closely, and their heritage, and their Jedi masters, and their Sith masters, and I just think Star Wars is incredible. Like all 9 episodes, the portrayal of humanity comes through in those stories um, is just like fantastic, and it's incredible. And I think any like aspiring like movie, film, video producer, music producer, anybody who seeks to be any sort of creative director could benefit from studying George Lucas and from studying Dave Filoni. And I don't know a lot of other names from the Star Wars team, but like obviously they've got some fantastic people on board. And obviously like Jon Favreau and then like Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers had something really, really special going on with the MCU. And then like Chris Columbus was one of the guys that produced Harry Potter. I think Harry Potter had like 3 or 4 different directors or whatnot. But J.K. Rowling was an acting producer in all of those. And I just think like on the conversational side, all of that is super interesting. And I also think like on the creative side and how that applies to like how I approach producing our music, I think that that's super interesting, because I always find myself like, what would be like the Dave Filoni thing to do? Like what would be the big picture comprehensive thing to do? Like what could I do here? What needs to happen here that says I can see the big picture, right?
Right.
And I think that that is one of the huge things that you have to do. You have to do when you approach creating a song. One of the huge things you have to do when you approach creating a song as a producer is say like, what are we looking for? Like as a painter, like you can just start drawing and just like putting some lines, but if you watch Bob Ross, like he's intentional, and that's what makes him fantastic. Like Bob Ross, he's like, oh, and then we're gonna put some happy trees here, and
Yeah.
like his paintings aren't the most detailed. Like when you zoom in on them, like there's much more detailed paintings made
Right.
by other people. But the thing that's fantastic about Bob Ross is he's able to see the big picture and then do the smaller things in a way that glues it all together.
Yeah.
And I just like, I love stories, man. I love the creative inspiration that has to exist. Like the likelihood that Star Wars ever even existed was pretty much zero. Like
Yeah.
the chances were lotteryistic, if that's even a word. It was like, it's got to be 1,000,000,000 to 1.
Right. Yeah. It is interesting. I know like Star Wars and the Marvel universe definitely get a lot of uh flack or whatever, get a lot of hate, but I just think it's um as far as like being a creative type, um there's a lot to draw from just by watching like the comic book movies or um it's like cuz we obviously don't have like a $200 million budget or $1 billion budget, um
Yeah,
and so
certainly.
it's cool to see like such an artistic vision just come to life. I mean, whatever people want to say about it, oh, it's like woke or oh, this and that about it,
Which they
it's
can be.
lame.
They can
What was
be,
that?
and they can be woke, and they can be like, they do cater. And
Yeah.
I don't fault people. I don't fault people for having criticisms.
Mhm.
Um, I don't fault people for having criticisms of any franchise, especially one that they have a deep emotional connection to. And when that
Yeah.
deep connection feels kind of betrayed for dollars,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I totally get that people might be super upset. I do think that it's possible to miss the forest for the trees though on stuff like that.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I know as a as you know, just a musician, it's fun to see like the other heights of. To me, I look at those movies as like I don't like we've talked about this before, like a Metallica songs remind you of like a Godzilla movie. To me, it's like
Yeah.
seeing those movies is like it's like you know I don't even know how to describe this, but Metallica is like the MCU of the music world.
Yeah,
If that
well,
makes sense.
can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's just like once you get to that point where you have all the resources you could ever need to like in there's this Metallica documentary, Some Kind of Monster, where it goes through their process for creating the album Saint Anger, and they basically like rent this giant warehouse and build a studio in it, and they have their producer um come out, and they're all just hanging out in this place, and this is like it's like a tense point, but anyway, my point was that they have all the resources they need, like they can spend basically limitless money to get themselves in the studio to record the music that they want to record. And these movies, like the MCU, in a similar sense, they have like this endless budget to create this movie that they want to create. So it's just like when there are no limitations, anything you possibly could conceive of, you can make it happen on camera. It's just cool to see what they come up with.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
dude. I didn't know that about Metallica, but
yeah. There's a whole documentary, and it's pretty brutal.
that sounds insane. That
Yeah,
that makes me think of like the story about somebody throwing a mini fridge off of a rafter at the Metallica concert
yeah,
and like people dying.
yeah. That's just crazy.
I don't know. I don't know as the performer. I don't know how I could like get over that.
Right.
I mean, I
Yeah. At the end of the day, um, there's nothing they can even do. Like, they have basically created a thing, and it's there's other bands like Metallica that are similar levels, but it's like they created something that has a life of its own at this point. Uh,
yeah, totally.
and you have, I mean, you can say they have responsibility for playing the show or whatever, but it's just crazy shit's gonna happen if they're playing somewhere and 600,000 people want to see the show. You can guarantee some crazy shit's gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
pretty insane.
Stand by.
Just
It's pretty insane. Hold that thought. My
yeah,
camera just ran out of memory.
you're good.
I need to make sure that it's good. I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna get.
Boop a doop a doop. Hmm. Do you know what this F in the top left corner does?
No.
Neither do I. I'm pressing it and I can't tell if anything, what is even happening.
No, sir, I do not.
Doobadet. Doobadet. Mm.
What do you think we do? One more topic?
Yeah, we can do one more topic. Um, What do you want to talk about? Cryptocurrencies?
Sure.
All right.
Why not?
Yeah.
One sec. Okay. And okay, we're good.
Are we? Nice.
Go ahead. You want to talk about cryptocurrency? Oh, you were saying it's given it, it's taken a life of its own. That's where we were.
Yeah. I think that's probably the end of my point.
Cool. Dude, Metallica is incredible, and it's definitely a thing to like, as a band, like get yourself a space and do something legendary.
Yeah.
Like that's how this iteration of our musical collaboration was born.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to do that. If I had my way, we could do that like every, other month.
I know.
That would be sick. There's this artist. His name's Felly.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard of this guy?
No, I haven't.
He's dope. He's like a blues pop kind of like oopsies. He's legit. He makes like musical music. And seems like a pretty legit guy. Kind of new agey. So different from you and I in that way, but I think it'd be fun to work with him. And he like all the time you just see him at like Airbnbs or Verbios or whatever that are like out in the middle of nowhere. And that's what he does. He goes and he like sets up, and then after he sets up, he like does what we did, but that's how he does pretty much like all of his albums. I think it's a cool process.
Yeah, that is a cool process.
And just like Metallica rented, like getting that place, like you were talking about, and then like Led Zeppelin did that for what album was that?
I can't remember, but I know I've heard stories about the way Led Zeppelin recorded. But I know, yeah. I mean, I could go off on a tangent, but yeah, I think probably lots of bands have done that and still do that just when they got enough money.
What do you mean when you say go off on a tangent?
Oh, about the way that when you talked about Led Zeppelin and we in the context of like recording spaces, I just remember there's one recording where I can't remember which song it was or which album, but they put John Bonham like and his drum set like at the top of like a staircase. Like I think it was a spiral staircase, and they recorded from the bottom of the staircase. So it's like really like natural reverb and just a crazy kind of sound.
What documentary is that?
I'm not sure. I don't even. I could just be making it up.
No,
but
you're not.
I feel like I've heard. I feel like I heard of that.
An iconic drum sound, to say the least. This drum sound came just 2 microphones set up in a stairwell. Bottom set up his kit at the bottom of Headley Grange's 3-story stairwell.
I see.
When the levee breaks.
When the levee breaks. Yeah, that's right.
I can't read.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here. Engineer Andy Johns recalls placing 2 Bayer Dynamic M160 ribbon microphones at the top of a stairwell in a stereo configuration. According to Johns, those were the only mics placed on the kit. The drums mics were amplified and compressed through a Helios console and run into a Benson through a Benson EchoRec Echo unit, which is also known to impart its compression to the signal. Me reading that goes to show how much of a ancient sound tech nerd I am. But yeah, when the levee breaks.
It's a banger.
Banger. Cool, dude. I like your knowledge about random drum recordings. I think that's cool. Nobody uses ribbon mics anymore.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I've ever had one used in any of the studio sessions I've done. Maybe I have, but I don't remember it if I do. If it did happen.
Yeah, we had some at the studio where I went to college, but they were the only ones I've ever come across were those ribbon mics.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, you have to have so much money, right? Like Bellion uses all sorts of like cool stuff on his recordings and whatnot, but that's easy when you can just go like get Studio B at Capitol for a week.
Right. Yep, we don't have such luxury. But
not yet.
Not yet, exactly.
Cool, dude. Do you think we should wrap it up there?
Yeah, we can wrap it up there. I mean, you talking about wrap up the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can talk about. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stuff we could talk about at other times. But yeah, I mean, I know you're into crypto, and I'm super into. I've been on a kick about random cults, but we'll save that stuff for another episode.
Yeah, we'll start our next episode with cryptocurrency and cults.
Sounds good.
That's a good way to describe my whole entire life.
Yes.
Sick, dude.
Perfect.
Well, I'm gonna go get ready for my date, and I like how this has felt like just talking more than trying to make a production.
Yeah, me too. We'll figure out how to like crop it and everything. I mean, the screen is there, so I guess if we just need to crop my video to where it's just my face, we can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll. Do you want me to upload this video to the Google Drive?
Yeah. Upload it to the Google Drive, and then on one of my days off here, shortly I will throw this all together in a Final Cut file, and we'll go from there.
Okay, cool. So I'll throw the video and my Logic. I'll just bounce the audio and upload the audio as well.
Dope. I was thinking it would be cool to do like, what if we did like music review / song reactions?
Yeah, that's not a bad. That's a good idea.
Like, I think it would be cool if on this podcast we did reactions to like Metallica songs, to like Blink songs, to like rap songs. I feel like we don't have to become music critics, but I think we would be great people to sit and dissect songs. I think if anybody could come up with engaging, thought-provoking stuff, analyzing music, it very well may just be us.
Yeah, I know. In FaceTime, we can do that thing where like we can watch YouTube together in FaceTime.
So cute, man.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go get ready for my date, and talk to you soon.
All right, see you, man.